The men's ice hockey team joins us for this season's first Crossfire Debate and Prof Spotlight.
And the women's basketball team finishes up their regular season.
All this and more coming up on All Access.
Our 1,742-hour off-season is finally over. Welcome to a brand new season of All Access, the show that has a higher rating than the total points scored in the NBA All-Star Game. I'm Cody Decker.
And I'm Rachel Williamson. We have a lot of Rowan Athletics news and recaps to cover, so let's get right to it.
Let's do it. The women's basketball team lost by just 1 point to Montclair State on Wednesday, February 10th. The Profs held a 70-67 lead with less than a minute remaining on the clock. Unfortunately for the Profs, they could not hold the advantage. It was a slow start to the game with less than 20 points scored in the first quarter. Leading the Profs was forward Kate Matthews with 15 points and 16 rebounds. Guard forward Melissa Lake added 12 points and 7 boards to the game. This put the Profs at an overall record of 19-4 while also making them 13-3 in the NJAC.
After a tough loss to the Red Hawks, the Profs came back to polish off their 20th win over Rutgers Newark on Saturday the 13th. This was their final road game of the regular season, ending with a score of 82-68. Profs guard forward Caitlin Schulstorm had a career-high 31 points in the game, also giving her 1,000th point of her own career. The team took an early lead of 11-3 to start the game. The Scarlet Raiders came back in the second quarter to tie the game at 21. The Profs pulled away with a 64-55 lead to end the third quarter. They held the lead in the fourth quarter, only letting the Scarlet Raiders get as close as 13 points. The Profs climbed to 14-3 in the NJAC and 20-4 overall.
It was a huge win for the Profs against William Patterson on Wednesday night. This concluded their regular season and secured a share of the NJAC title. It was an 83-65 victory led by guard forward Caitlin Schulstorm, who had 17 points and 7 rebounds, and guard forward Melissa Lake, who tied a career-high 16 points. In the first quarter, Rowan took a 12-5 lead with almost 6 minutes left on the clock. The Pioneers came back to tie the game at 36 in the third quarter. The Profs followed by scoring 13 of the next 16 points. In the fourth quarter, they pulled even further away with a 19-point lead. From there, William Patterson only got as close as 16 points. The Profs are the number 2 seed in the NJAC tournament and will host a semifinal game on Tuesday, February 23rd against the winner of number 3 Stockton and number 6 Rutgers Newark at 7 p.m.
Now, for all the buzz in the world of pro sports, we turn to Lenny Schnee for this week's Pro Talk.
Thanks, Rachel. This week in pro sports. In case you haven't watched much pro sports since the last time we were here, I'm going to review some of the biggest topics of the last 2 months. First was the NHL Winter Classic. That took place as it always does on New Year's Day. The game took place on the infield of Fenway Park in Boston, and the Canadiens defeated the Bruins easily 5-1. Paul Byron had 2 goals for Montreal, and Adam McQuaid had the lone goal for Boston. Mike Condon had the win in net for the Canadiens. Over to football, where on February 7th, the Broncos emerged victorious over the Panthers in the Super Bowl. The final score was 24-10 in what was perhaps Peyton Manning's final game. The Broncos recorded a Super Bowl record 7 sacks and had no receiving touchdowns. Cam Newton struggled for the Panthers, losing 2 fumbles and having no touchdowns for the first time this season. Also, the game's MVP was Broncos linebacker Von Miller. In the NBA, the last time we had All Access, the Warriors were still undefeated. They suffered their first loss to the Milwaukee Bucks. Now they sit at 48-4 and are atop the NBA. Steph Curry is the frontrunner for league MVP, and Draymond Green is having a career year. The Warriors will likely end the season nearing the record-setting 1995-96 Bulls and will be a contender to be back-to-back champions. Also in the NBA, the local team, the Philadelphia 76ers, are in turmoil. The Sixers are at the bottom of the NBA at a record of 8-45. They will likely have their third top 3 pick in the last 3 years. They selected Joel Embiid 3rd overall in 2014 and Jahlil Okafor 3rd overall in last year's draft. Mock drafts have the Sixers choosing Ben Simmons of LSU at number 1 overall. In other news locally, the Eagles fired Chip Kelly after a loss this year in Week 16. Kelly was 26-21 in his tenure as Eagles coach, but failed to record a playoff win. Kelly was hired several weeks later to coach the San Francisco 49ers. He's being replaced by Doug Peterson, who was the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs last season. That's all I have for you on this week's Pro Talk. Later, Cody and Rachel will have updates on the men's basketball team. But after the break, Vina Marie Pizzo sits down with members of the men's ice hockey team for this week's edition of Prof Spotlight. So stay tuned for more All Access.
Welcome back to All Access. I'm Vina Marie Pizzo with this week's edition of Prof Spotlight. Joining me at this time are forward Alex Nikolai and defenseman Andrew Doherty of the Rowan men's ice hockey team. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So let me start off with a few questions for you guys. Now, Andrew Doherty, you don't want to be called Doc, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, so as captain, what are you doing to prepare your team for the league tournament this year?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of older guys on the team, so a lot of us have been in this role before, so we pretty much know what to expect. I mean, for some of the younger guys, it shouldn't really have to be said, but just bring extra intensity, and they're going to come up to play, so we're going to have to be ready to play too. Great, good.
Now, Alec Nikolai, you are a forward. What are you doing to prepare for the league tournament?
Like Doc said, we have a good group of leaders in the locker room, so I think just leading by example and letting the younger guys kind of follow suit. We're playing Riders started off, which doesn't really take much to get up for those games. It's a big rivalry, so I think just leading by example. Nothing too serious has to be said. I think everyone knows what's coming for us.
Okay, now you mentioned Ryder. Now, Doc, you did beat Ryder both times in this season, but the one time you did come very close. What is going to be your team motivator as a captain to ensure that it doesn't come that close again?
Well, I mean, like Nikolai said, it doesn't take much to get going against Ryder. I mean, and it's a big game. It always has been. I mean, they tend to be a little scummy at times, so it's easy to kind of get going against them. So everyone kind of knows what to expect.
You're not worried?
Not really.
Okay, good. All right. Now, Alec, how are you coming back from your loss against William Patterson over the weekend?
That was a rough one to take.
I
Big
know.
loss.
I know.
The first period kind of started off pretty bad, but I think we settled into the game in the second and third period and kind of got our legs moving, started playing a little bit better. So I think kind of forget what the score was, forget the scoreboard during that game, and just focus on the positives and try to keep moving forward. Short memories and just leave it in the past. And
so you kind of just pretend like it's not even there and just keep on going?
Almost. Well, not pretend like it's not there. Just forget about the scoreboard and just worry about the positives.
Stay in the zone. Stay positive no matter what.
Yep.
Okay. Is that something that is strong within your team? Are you guys good at staying positive altogether?
To be honest, we don't handle adversity too well.
Okay.
If we get down in a game, kind of gets a little rough on the bench at times. But I think we're starting to learn from it. I think especially the William P game started off rough, but I think guys bounced back. So hopefully we're able to learn from these things and move forward.
How long have you been on the team?
This is my 4th year.
Okay, so as time progressed, did you see that growing, changing over time, or has it kind of been at a standstill?
This year, I think as the season moved on, we started to get better at it. Kind of in the beginning of the year, we kind of would freak out if things weren't going our way.
Okay.
But I think lately, it showed in the Willie P game, we kind of settled in and got our legs moving and focused on what had to be done.
And what about you personally? How have you evolved over the past 4 years?
Personally, I think this has been my worst year, so I don't really want to talk about that too much. But again, just focus on the team game. Don't really want to focus on myself.
Worst year mentally?
Statistically, I think I had a rough start to the year.
Okay.
But I think I've settled in the second semester, and hopefully we'll move forward and make big noise in the playoffs and regionals.
Well, you do have a lot to look forward to.
Exactly.
So that's good. Just stay positive. Now, Doc, what are you going to do as a leader to recover from this loss against William Patterson?
Just tell everybody you got to block it out. I mean, like he said, you just have to have a short memory. We got stomped, and that's never fun. But you just have to tell everybody, I mean, forget about it. Today's a new day. It's a new game.
Positive.
And just get up for the next one.
Do you have any specific tactics you're thinking about using to stay positive?
No, I mean, we usually, like I said before, it's pretty easy to get up for a Rider game, so you don't really have to tell people, oh, forget about Willie P, forget about what happened. I mean, everybody pretty much wants to forget about that because it's, 7-1.
Right. So you're really just trying to keep it in the past and not even think about it?
Yeah, exactly. Don't think about it and just move on.
But you don't think it's going to bring you guys down at all, right? Getting right back up on your feet?
No, it shouldn't. We
Okay.
We lost worse than that
There's been worse.
I
Yeah.
think-
before. So
I think it being Rider definitely helps. I think everybody looks forward to a Rider game, and like we said, it's a huge rivalry. So it's
Right.
not. It doesn't take much to forget about Willie P when you have Rider standing in the face.
Okay.
Let's say standing.
Step in the right direction. Okay. Alec, you have won game number 20, and that was on senior night. How do you feel about that?
That was a lot of fun. We had a good crowd there. I think best crowd of the season.
It's a lot of support, a lot of high
support,
energy.
A lot of energy.
Okay.
Have a lot of seniors in the room, so I think the whole team wanted to do it for them. And like I said, it was just a whole lot of fun to play that game.
Okay.
And winning that in overtime was huge.
Okay. All right, great. So that is all the time we have for this week on Prof Spotlight. I'd like to thank Alec and Andrew both for stopping by and hanging out with us. Coming up after the break, Cody and Rachel have more updates on everything Rowan sports. So stay right here for more All Access.
Welcome back to All Access. We have ice hockey highlights, but first let's tip off the segment with the latest on the men's basketball team. Take it away, Rachel.
On Wednesday, February 10th, the Rowan's men's basketball team played host to Montclair State in an NJAC matchup. It was a close matchup that came down to the wire. With a minute and 11 seconds left in the second half, guard Sean Russell sank the second of 2 free throws, tying the score at 75. The game eventually went into OT, where the Redhawks took the immediate lead off 2 free throws from center Brian Crosby. Male Athlete of the Week guard Nick DePergia had a layup, and forward Chris Gross followed with a basket to go ahead 78-77 with 4 minutes and 6 seconds left in extra time. DePergia also made a layup, extending the lead to 84-81 with 53 seconds left. The final was 84-83 in favor of the Profs.
On Saturday, February 13th, the Rowan men's basketball team traveled to face Rutgers Newark. For Rowan guard Nick DePergia scored 16 points, and forward Ben Hills came off the bench for 12 points and 7 boards. Those stats were all career highs for Hills. Forward Sean Wilson added 10 points, but this was all in a losing effort. Rutgers Newark won 69-63 over Rowan University. This was Rowan's last road game, and they struggled on the road all season. Their road record finished at 2-7.
In the regular season finale, Rowan hosted William Patterson on Wednesday night. It was senior night for the Profs. Center Dan Brogan, forward Chris Gross, guard Daryl Robinson, and guard Chris O'Connor were honored before the game. Unfortunately for the Profs, the feel-good mojo of the night was short-lived. In the first 3 minutes and 8 seconds of the game, William Patterson went on an 11-2 run. William Patterson never looked back as they went into halftime with a 39-31 lead. This was the closest the game would be as the Pioneers keep extending their lead to as big as 20 and as little as 11. The final was 85-65. This was the last game of the season as they did not obtain a playoff spot. Congratulations to the men on a hard-fought season. So it looks like the ladies are leading again. I remember last season we're comparing them to the Golden State Warriors, being undefeated, being strong.
Yeah, I mean, 12, 13 games, they were undefeated, and then, they hit a bump in the road there with a loss, but they played extremely well. 21-4 record overall. It's very impressive, and, they have a top seed now in the NJAC, which is great.
Yeah, it's been great following them.
Absolutely. After this timeout, Thomas DiNapoli hosts this season's first Crossfire debate. Don't touch that dial.
Welcome back to All Access. I'm Tom Snapley. Joining me for this season's first Crossfire debate are goaltender Cody Riley and defenseman Nick Fowler, part of the Rowan Division II men's club ice hockey team. Boys, you ready to debate?
Think so. Ready?
All right, so I'm going to start with the man on my right, Cody Riley. Again, a big topic talked about in the world of the National Hockey League was, should John Scott have been an all-star? Do you think he should have been?
He really didn't put up the stats he needed to be an all-star, but going off that, he earned the votes, and that was what the NHL agreed with. So, yeah, he deserved to be there.
I'm so happy you mentioned stats, because guess what I have for you guys? I have some stats. So 1 point for the Arizona Coyotes, which was an assist. He played 11 games, 20 hits, 11 blocks, 3 turnovers, 2 takeaways, and he got traded to Montreal and sent down to the AHL, which is essentially the minor leagues for hockey. So Nick, based on what Cody said and based on these stats, should John Scott have been an all-star?
Technically, no, but yeah, he was a fan favorite, and he was liked by his teammates and everyone else in the stands. So I think he did deserve his spot out there on the ice, and he proved his point.
Now, we've seen Major League Baseball do the ballots of fan voting. It used to be at the games, now it's kind of electronic. The NHL went to fan voting this year, and to them it kind of seemed like it backfired because they elected this person with not great stats. Do you guys think the NHL, should continue with the fan vote?
I think they should. I think they should change a couple things about it, like
Specifically.
maybe pick the top 4 players from each team, and then have fans vote on who they want from that team to go in, and I feel like that would have a more balanced outcome.
And what do you think about the voting for the All-Star game?
I like the voting personally. I mean, they use voting for, like for example, they use for the cover of NHL. They use voting, so I think it's a good way to keep things fresh and see new players out there on the ice sometimes.
Okay, so the NHL All-Star game, it was 3-on-3, and the NHL has done 3-on-3 hockey this year. When it comes to the overtime period, you guys are still in a 4-on-4 when you guys go into overtime. Now, what do you think should happen? What do you like better, whether in the NHL, whether in your league, 3-on-3 or 4-on-4? Nick, we'll start with you this time.
You're saying in our league or in
general?
In general.
So
I think,
both, really.
Okay. I think in the NHL it makes it much more exciting. There's so much more ice out there, and with the speed of these guys these days, anything could happen. You know, it's back and forth throughout the whole 5 minutes. So I like it personally. However, if it was me out there, I don't know if I could keep up. But yeah, I like it.
Cody, what about you?
From a goalie perspective, I'd rather 4-on-4, have an extra guy out there. But it's definitely a lot more exciting to watch. Just seeing back and forth for 5 minutes is real entertaining.
And to add to that, this year so far there have been 273 overtime wins to last year's 226 overtime wins. Already 47 more wins, and this season isn't even over. So that's the overtime period. Let's get to after the overtime period when there's a tie, it goes into a shootout. Do you think shootout's a good indication of who wins? We'll start with the goalie who has that face.
I mean, I hate shootouts. But after a 3-on-3, I mean, I remember they used to end in a tie a while ago, and it's like a cliffhanger, you know?
Yeah.
So after a 3-on-3, if there's not a goal, I agree with the shootout. I like it.
What about you, Nick?
I think implementing the 3-on-3 there's been many more goals scored in the overtime period. So I think the shootout after 5 minutes will suffice.
Okay, so we like that, but what if it's a playoff game and your season's hang in the balance? Are we going to go to a shootout after, you can really argue that one team could definitely play the better game and then they could just have the worst shootout people and lose. So should shootout stay for the playoffs? Nick?
I say no. Playoff, it's all out there on the line. You want to end with a good 5-on-5 or perhaps a power play goal. So I don't think shootouts should be the deciding factor in whether a team advances or not. I think they should play it out just like they do in the NHL playoffs still.
What about you, Cody?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just the continuous overtime is just awesome. I remember, we do it all the time in NHL when we play on the Xbox. We make sure it's not continuous because it can't get, someone can't win in the shootout. That just can't happen.
Now, I know hockey, they do kind of a golden goal scenario, but soccer, they do just a timed period. Now, what would you say if there were to be just a 10-minute overtime period timed for hockey? How would you like to go about that?
Not a fan.
Not a golden goal. Not a fan?
No, not a fan of soccer either.
I like the sudden death. First goal to get it wins.
Guys, so we've been talking about a lot about the NHL. Quickly, before we let you guys go, who's the best player in the NHL right now?
You go.
Right now?
Right now.
My boy Shane Gothisbeer, defenseman for the Flyers. He's been putting up a bunch of points. He currently has a 13, I think, game point streak. So ask Nikolai about that when he comes back. He'll have nothing but good things to say about that player.
So the defenseman?
Yeah, I gotta pick a D guy.
You're gonna pick a goalie?
Of course. I gotta go with my boy Corey Schneider. He's the back of the Devils right now, and they're in the playoff spot thanks to him. So if he keeps it up, hopefully he'll make the playoffs.
Definitely, my gosh, Schneider, love to see that. Cody, Nick, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is all the time we have for this week's Crossfire Debate. Again, thank you guys for coming. And Rachel, Cody, back at the desk. Take it away.
Thanks, Tom. I think I definitely have to side with Nick with that one. The Flyers, you just can't go wrong.
I think the Devils are higher in the standings. Corey Schneider has like 32 games out of like the 40 where he's allowed 2 goals or less. That's impressive. And he was an all-star for a reason. So I'm going to give credit to both of them for one thing, though. They did not dodge, duck, dip, dive, or dodge around any of the questions. They were straightforward with their answers, unlike a lot of the presidential candidates coming up in the election.
You do have a point. Yeah, they're a good way to start off the season.
Absolutely.
Well, it's almost time to recap the men's ice hockey team. But first, let's check in on the men's and women's indoor track team. Cody?
Thanks, Rach. The men and women's indoor track teams competed at the Molloy College Lions Invitational at St. Anthony's High School on Friday, February 12th. On the men's side, Dave Benjamin took first and broke his previous school record in the 60-meter hurdles with a time of 8.11 seconds. His previous time was 8.34 seconds. Nick Neville took the pole position in the 800-meter run with a time of 1 minute, 59 seconds. The triple jump tandem of Daryl Charles and Peter Chameleon took first and second place respectively. Also taking the top spot was the 4x400-meter relay team of Marcus Tabb, Jonathan Ramirez, Michael Raymond, and Jameel Jackson, and the distance medley relay team of Neville, Pat McCurry, Brandon Eldershaw, and Chris Messiano. As for the women, Shayla Williams broke her previous record in the 60-meter dash by 100th of a second with a time of 7.66 seconds, leading to a first-place finish at the meet. She was also victorious in the 200 and 400-meter dashes and took the silver in the high jump. Also atop the podium was Aspen McMillan in the 60-meter hurdles with a time of 9.11 seconds, and the 4x800-meter relay team of Brianna Angelella, Vanessa Valdez, Claire Incantalupo, and Claire Corbett with a time of 9 minutes, 51.43 seconds. Next up for the indoor track teams will be the NJAC Championships on Monday, February 22nd at Ocean Breeze Track Center in Staten Island, New York.
The men's ice hockey team had an important final weekend to their regular season, which began on Friday, February 12th, with a visit to the University of Delaware to take on the Blue Hens. In the third ranking period, the Profs sat one spot behind the Blue Hens before the game. The Profs will win 8-3. In the first period, it was all Blue Hens as they scored 3 goals in 6.5 minutes of play. Stephen Bryson scored about 5 minutes in with assists by Connor Case and Nathan Marks. Then Alec Rankin found Twine off a pass from Tanner Jones, and Trevor Richmond capped off the trifecta with a shorthanded goal unassisted. However, from that point on, Rowan scored 8 unanswered goals. Alex Polis registered a hat trick. Alec Nikolai had the final goal and 2 assists, and Sam Meyer had a goal and 3 assists. Brett Lachevsky also contributed to the stat sheet with 2 goals. Cody Riley earned the win, making 31 saves on 34 shots on goal.
The Profs had little time to celebrate the victory as they traveled to the Ice Bowl on Saturday, February 13th, to face off with national contender William Patterson University in the regular season finale. The Profs would fall 7-1 on the Pioneers senior night. The Pioneers tacked a 5 spot on the scoreboard in the first period. Daniel Sabato had 2 goals, his first one shorthanded to open up the scoring. Ryan Ertman had a goal and an assist, plus another goal in the second period, and Tyler Steinwell had a goal and an assist to his credit. The Profs would score in the second period off a one-time pass from Sam Meyer to Corey Garinger at a point in which the Profs could swing back the momentum their way. However, Ertman's second goal and a goal from Nicholas Brown sealed the deal for the Pioneers. William Patterson has earned an auto bid to the ACHA Division II National Tournament as a number 2 seed, coming out of the Northeast region with a regular season record of 24-0-3. As for the Profs, they capped off their regular season with a 17-5-0-3 record and have earned the number 7 rank in the Southeast region. They will play in their league tournament this weekend where they look to get back to the MAC championship game for the second straight year and win their first league title in school history.
Well, Cody, it looks like this episode is over, kind of like Daniel Bryan's career. I got to say no. I'm sad to see him go, man.
It's sad, it is, but when you have all these injuries and you want to raise a family, like I'm sure they do,
yeah,
it's very important to them. So.
Well, it goes to argue the fact that people say they're not athletes because things may be planned, but I think a lot of them have been suffering injuries recently, and you could definitely give him some props.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a long career and a great career in WWE, so
yeah,
congrats to him. Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have this week. On behalf of Cody Decker, Lenny Schnee, Thomas DiNapoli, Vina Marie Pizzo, and the entire All Access team, I'm Rachel Williamson, and we'll see you next week.